In these days of COVID, one of the best ways of slowing the spread is by wearing a mask, particularly anywhere indoors when you're with people who are not in your bubble, plus outdoors when you can't sustain social distancing. But masks are a new thing for a lot of people, and like everything with COVID, there's a lot of misinformation going around. Here are three ideas that some people believe all at the same time. First, when you wear a mask, you're breathing in too much CO2. Second, masks prevent you from getting enough oxygen. And three, masks are completely ineffective at screening out the virus anyway. People think that they can't wear masks or that they're damaging their health, like all of those doctors dropping dead from wearing masks all the time, which they never actually seem to do. So let's think. First, the CO2 idea. Outdoors, the level of CO2 in the atmosphere is approximately 400 parts per million. The air we breathe out has about 100 times as much carbon dioxide as the air that we breathe in. It's about 4 to 5% CO2. Some people think that's all CO2, but no, most of it's nitrogen, pretty much unchanged from when we breathed it in. And there's still oxygen in it. About 3/4 of the oxygen that you breathed in is still in the air that you breathe out. It goes from about 21% down to about 15%. Obviously, it's variable by breath. But now we're putting that barrier in front of our mouth. Aren't we just going to be breathing in vast amounts of CO2? Well, we would be if we were breathing out into a paper bag and breathing that same air back in again. This is what people used to do when they were hyperventilating, because when you overbreathe, your blood level of CO2 drops too much, and we need to bring it back up again. CO2 is partly how we maintain our blood pH. But we're not breathing into a bag. We're breathing through a porous mask that leaves only a tiny amount of room between it and your face. Look how much air I breathe in with a standard breath. Do you really think there's that much air hiding behind your mask? No, there's a couple of cc's. That's it. It's not an issue. As well, we're assuming that that exhaled air doesn't exchange with the air outside your mask, but it does. If it didn't, your mask would blow up like a balloon when you exhale. Obviously. What about the idea that CO2 cannot escape your mask? Like maybe nitrogen gets out, but you retain all that CO2. And while we're at it, what about that second idea, that oxygen won't go through your mask either? Well, for that, let's look at the size of the molecules. A CO2 molecule is 0.33 nanometers in diameter. That's really little. Nitrogen molecules, which make up most of the air we breathe in and breathe out, are about the same size, 0.30 of a nanometer. And what about oxygen? Well, that's the smallest of the bunch, slightly smaller at 0.29. The gaps in any mask, even the N95 masks used in specific medical settings, are easily sufficient to allow all three of these gases to cross without difficulty. Imagine that this pebble is an oxygen molecule, and this slightly larger one is a CO2 molecule. How large would a copy of the virus be by comparison? 414 times the diameter of oxygen. So come on, do you really think that a mask blocks this from getting through, but lets this through? Really? And anyway, it's a false comparison, because your mask isn't even designed to screen out the virus. That's not what it's for. You're wearing it to avoid most of the water droplets that people spray out when they breathe, talk, sing, yell, cough, and sneeze. So how big are those? Well, they vary. You've seen huge gobs of the stuff if you've ever sat too close at the opera. They used to object when punk rock bands would pee on the crowd. Turns out that was the least of the problem. So how big are the droplets that go any distance? Well, they're variable, obviously, but much of the concern is around droplets of about 4 micrometers in diameter. That's a globe 33 times the diameter of the virus and over 13,000 times the diameter of oxygen. Compared to our COVID molecule, how big is that? Well, keep an eye on that rock. Now imagine a globe of water that's as wide as that distance, and inside it is floating that rock. That's how much bigger the droplets are than oxygen. So if that can get through, so can this. Let's put it another way. Look at the width of the nail on your ring finger. That's an oxygen molecule. Your middle finger, that's a CO2 molecule. Now go into your bedroom. That's the virus. Then go outside and look at your city block. That's around the diameter of a water droplet. Those droplets are twice the height of the Taj Mahal, or about 1.5 times the height of the Statue of Liberty. The one thing that's actually kind of true is that many masks can still let in droplets that size. There isn't a perfect seal around your face, so some droplets can come in at the sides. And depending on the weave of your mask, they can also go straight through. Much of what masks do is prevent the forward propulsion of those droplets toward other people. They don't travel as far. Many or most of your own droplets get trapped by the fabric on the way out, and some of the droplets from other people get screened out by the fabric on the way in. So listen, if you can't get air through your mask, there is something you can do. First, remove your mask. Second, remove the plastic cover that the mask came in. Third, put the mask back on. There you go. Problem solved. What you don't need to do is cut a larger hole in the mask to let oxygen in, or wear it beneath your nose. This is IQ advertising that none of us really needs. The air getting through is just fine. Can we prove that? Yeah, you can prove it yourself with a blood oximeter. I've been wearing this mask for 2 hours now. Let's take a look at my blood oxygenation, which should read between 95 and 99%, whether I'm wearing a mask or not. If you have some lung compromise, your readings may be different, but that won't change the physics of the mask. Oxygen and carbon dioxide can cross through the mask, and it may mean that because you're more vulnerable to complications from COVID, it is even more important that you mask up around others. Masks aren't perfect. Social distancing, washing your hands, and avoiding large gatherings, especially indoors, are still important strategies. But masks, especially well-constructed and well-fitted ones, do help. So listen, are you breathing in too much CO2 with a face mask? No. Are you starving yourself of oxygen? No. Are you reducing the spread of virus from you to others? Yes, potentially. And from others to you? Yes, depending on the type of mask. So, masks, do you need them when you're out? Yes. They're standard equipment. Kind of like pants.